Hi everybody, welcome to the Hard Deconstruction. You can find us at hardeconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardeconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hard Deconstruction with your hosts Comp and
Danny.
today's episode is a really special one because it's Christmas themed, so we wanted to bring a Christmas film to you guys to enjoy. It is called
Jack Frost, 1998.
Jack Frost 1998 is about a father who can't keep his promises, dies in a car accident, and 1 year later he returns as a snowman who has the final chance to put things right with his son before he is gone forever. It's directed by Troy Miller. It stars Michael Keaton, Kelly Preston, Joseph Cross, and Mark Addy. Mark Addy was...
Which character is Mark Addy? I wasn't familiar with that actor.
Mark Addy was his best friend that he played piano.
Oh, okay, the British.
Mark Addy, yes, he was a British actor. You can see him in, I believe, The Full Monty. He was really good in that film. And what's funny about this is that we were actually given, somebody told us that we should review this, and I was expecting a completely different film. You know, I mean, we usually cover horror films, and this was like a really amazing family film.
I mean, this really, I have to admit, I almost cried during this movie at several points. It's very touching.
It is a very touching film, and I was very welcome for the change in we were just watching all these horror films. They're very...
Sometimes it gets a little dark. It gets a little morbid. It was nice to lighten myself up with a nice family film.
And like a lot of the films are just very satanic and horrifying. And sometimes you just want a real change to watching the movie. You just want to see something that kind of just keeps you good.
Wholesome. I'd use the word wholesome to describe this film.
You know what? I'd agree with that. So, Danny, can you tell us about your history with this film?
Well, I've never seen it, but I've always been very intrigued by the cover art. It's very, very amazing cover art, and I like Michael Keaton. I like Frosty the Snowman. So it seemed like a perfect film to watch, and it was.
Yeah, no, especially in this time of year when you're just kind of you get a little bit down on the dumps about the weather and it gets a little too chilly. It was recommended to us by DakotaMemoirs.tumblr.com. So thank you, Dakota, for sending this movie our way.
Thank you, Dakota. You really made my day.
It was so strange because I remember I've only seen like animated GIFs of Jack Frost, the film, and I've heard about it a lot. I've seen it online, like goofed about and everything. And so I mean, there was obviously it must have been cut out of this version of the film. But there was like a sequence where a snowman is like attacking a woman in a shower. I believe it was the girl from American Pie.
That must have been an outtake or something.
I'm glad they cut it out. I'm really glad they cut it out because I don't think it fit in this film. Because I'm glad. I don't even know what the artistic reason that was.
It would have ruined the flow.
Right. I wouldn't know where the first place to put that in. But anyway, thank God they cut that out. Thank Jesus. And thank everybody else. It's just I'm just so happy what they did with this film. It was so heartwarming. So Danny, get into the story about Jack Frost from 1998. What happens in this film?
Okay, well, it starts out, there's a blues musician named Jack Frost, coincidentally enough.
And his band, the Jack Frost Band.
The Jack Frost Band is his blues band. They're really good. They're starting to take off. Not quite yet, but they're about to get a record deal. Little does Jack Frost know. And meanwhile, he's a good guy. He has good intentions. He loves his wife. They get along. I could never see them fighting. And he's got this beautiful son, Charlie. And, I say that in a completely platonic way.
Of course.
Of course. And, he's the kind of dad, he's a flake. He has good intentions.
A snowflake, would you say?
I would call him a flake. Snowflake, okay. Yes.
Okay, there you go. So how would you call his relationship with his son a little bit not so cohesive, or do you think they have the normal kind of relationship that a father and son has, a father who's in the music entertainment business?
I think that the son is a little ungrateful, actually.
Do you think so? Okay.
His dad is working hard to pay the bills, and the son just doesn't appreciate it.
So what we find out is that he's promised to see his son's game, right?
Right.
But he decides instead to record a surefire song hit. I love the music in this film. The music.
Well, what it is a record producer calls them and says, "You have to go to my Christmas party and play, or you're not getting the record deal." And so he goes. He feels terrible about it. Oh wait, I'm sorry. That comes later. We're
Yes,
talking
right.
about
That's what
Get
I'm saying. He
Back. I'm
recorded the
sorry. My
song.
bad. My
No,
bad.
no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Jesus forgives you. So I mean,
Okay.
the music in this film. Let's first off, we'll get to back to the story, but the music is so. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I've never tapped my toes to a film in such a long time. It was something
And
that
it was
made me.
perfectly placed. I mean, it was bringing tears to my
It
eyes.
really was good, and I couldn't believe how amazing it was. And I was like, wow. I mean, I actually went on iTunes and tried to find the soundtrack, and I couldn't. So I'm gonna have to like look for it on
Try
Amazon.
Spotify. Try
Try
Spotify.
Spotify. Okay, I'm sure they
They
have
have
that.
everything.
It's I mean, Michael Keaton's voice is like nectar to the ears. I mean, it's unbelievable. But
You
getting
would
back
never
to the
think
film,
from his performance in that, you know, frankly, that very dark movie, Beetlejuice, you would never
Oh,
think
yes.
he's capable of such deep acting.
I
But
say anybody that works with Tim Burton is basically working with the devil. That's why like I never really watch any Johnny Depp films because he is in league with Satan. I have no interest in seeing his
he
films.
was in that one with the guy with the fingernails, you know, the long scissor.
Oh yeah,
fingernails.
it was just outrageous. I mean, the prospect of that film, Vincent Price, the Prince of Lies, the actor in that film, unbelievable. And anything with Helena Bonham Carter, you can see anything with her. She's in a foul relationship, a satanic relationship
Amen. Amen.
with Tim Burton, and it's just like, why would you even bother watching films? It's such filth. Anyway,
Right.
sorry to get a little bit excited there. So anyway, Michael Keaton's character is having a tenuous relationship with his son, just because he promises things, but you know, as films go, we kind of need that
Yeah.
dramatic effect.
It adds a conflict.
Right, and the conflict is that he didn't have a very strong relationship with his son. And he had to break a lot of promises that he had to his son, and with his wife, the very beautiful Kelly Preston, I believe was her name, and she had a beautiful hairstyle. I loved it. I mean,
It was great.
the-
Whatever
the-
conditioner she was using, spot on.
whoever did the hair and makeup in this film, I hope they won every Oscar and every Golden Globe that was given out that year in 1998. Even 1999, you know what I mean? It's just amazing
Right.
stuff.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
unfortunately, he borrows his friend's car. And what happens, Danny?
Well, he wants to go back to the cabin with his family.
Right. Because
You
he
know,
promised
screw the
to.
record deal,
Yeah.
so excuse my language, but
Oh, my.
and he gets in a car accident, and okay, so now it's a year later. Charlie is still very upset.
Yes, because he's died. Jack Frost
His
has
dad
passed
died,
on.
yeah.
He died it off. He died off screen, which I'm glad that they didn't show any, the
We don't need to see the
physicality of
violence.
death. We don't need to see that. I mean,
We had enough violence in our other episodes.
we have enough violence in the world. I mean, if you just see what happens with these, these people, what are they calling? They're doing that game, the knock-in game, where they just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
It's called the
outrageous.
knockout game.
Things that happen to white Christian Americans, that shouldn't happen. But anyway, I don't want to get too political here. So what happens? His father's passed on, and now it's like a year later.
So he has this harmonica that his dad gave him,
Okay,
joking
right.
around, saying it was a magical harmonica and could call him back. Now, I'm not a big fan of magic, to be honest. It gets a little taboo for me.
I believe,
But-
yeah, I agree what you mean.
In this case, I think it had a good meaning. I think it was well used.
I know anything with usually at the outset when you're thinking about magic, you're thinking, oh, this is satanic. This is something that's not for this world. This is God's army that we should follow, and not something that's satanic or demonic in form. Because anything with magic or fortune tellers, I can't even be in a room when somebody is talking about visiting a fortune teller at a boardwalk. I just have to walk out because it's against my nature and against my God. So I just have to leave. But the magic in this one, I believe,
in
is
this case, I think it was more of a miracle.
right. So I think it is Christ-like, and I think it's very forgiving, this type of magic in this film. So I mean, sorry to go on that little tangent. I don't mean to be a rascal in that sense, but please continue with
No,
the
it's okay.
harmonica.
It's okay.
I thank you.
So he builds a snowman, which was a fatherly tradition. He did with his dad.
Right.
And he plays the harmonica, and lo and behold, Jack Frost became Frosty the Snowman.
By the power of God Himself. I mean, and usually when
It
people,
had to be a miracle.
it had
There's
to
no-
be, because usually when you build a snowman, that can be very pagan because you're putting a falsified version of man there, and you can worship that man, which is not good. But in this sense, his son used the snowman figure as a tool to bring back his father in the
It was
work
filled
of God.
with love.
Yes, it was
all
filled with love.
And-
There was
and
nothing bad about it.
This whole movie, the snowman is really just a means of a son bonding with his father and the dad, making up for his previous flakiness in life and really just showing his son that he loves him and that he can live on with his father in his heart.
Right. Let's get into this character Rory, who is the neighborhood bully who keeps picking on his son. What are your theories on this bully character and what he represents?
At first sight, a bully, you see them as bad. What are they doing? But you learn that he didn't have a father when he grew
Right.
up.
He too followed, a road that was not the best in his interests.
He's almost like a mirror image of Charlie. Charlie had a loving dad, and Rory didn't.
Right.
And his mom probably wasn't very wholesome. I mean, you could imagine a single mother; they're not so good.
Right.
But at the end, they had more in common than they thought. Rory ended up helping him transport his dad to colder climates on a mountain.
Right, because what I think the initial reason of having this Rory character, and it was, at the outset, you're like, I don't understand what this, why this character is here, what kind of conflict is he really bringing, and I realized the son himself is Charlie, right? Charlie represents, good old fashioned Christian America, this young boy. And then Rory is this fiendish force, which I think is multiculturalism, drug use, and
He
trying
seems
to
that way.
Yeah, it seems to, you know what I mean. What is this?
But the power of Charlie's goodness
and whiteness
and whiteness takes him over and turns him to the power of Christ. He converts him in a sense.
And I understand, it's just a phenomenal way that they figure that out, and I love that. Charlie is triumphant over these dark forces, which is Rory. He turns him, you know what I mean, and he turns him towards the eyes of God. And I think that's something that's phenomenal. And Rory ends up seeing the right, should I say, white way to deal. White as snow. That's what I mean. I'm not saying a racist nothing like that, guys. And he helps him achieve his goal of bringing his father back into his life. And what do you think about the relationship between the mother and Charlie?
I think, the mother didn't believe him, but reasonably so. Very few people believe in the power of God until they see it. And I think that deep down, that is the problem. You need to have faith. The mother didn't have faith. And, he showed her. He proved it to her. And now she believes in God. And
I know.
That is a vital part of the film.
Yeah, I think her relationship with her son got stronger in the end once they had the power of Jack Frost himself there. What did you think of Jack Frost's jokes? I thought there might have been a little some of the jokes were a little blue, which were not towards my taste. I think there's these kids throwing snowballs at them as they're going downhill, being chased, and two of the snowballs.
Harmless child's play.
Right, and that's my only gripe with this film is that two of the snowballs that they throw at Jack Frost pad his chest and almost take the form of very horrible sexual organs. And it's like for a split second, but I think it's very blue and it's very. It could lead children to the dark side, which I'm not happy with, but they rectify it.
It is low humor. I'll give it that, but okay. I think the overall
not my cup of tea.
morality of this film, goes over that in a sense.
And
and there's one thing I like about him. He has a power to propel his arms very fast and throw big snowballs.
The propelling of his arms, when he's hitting those snowballs, it reminds me of when Noah built his ark and he pressured through the storm. You know what I mean? That kind of. And I think this film is a whole parable about believing in the higher power. Obviously, there's a snowman that helps you, and taking a leap of faith like that, and it works out for Charlie, is what really makes this film above and beyond everything else. I mean, it's better than a Christmas Carol or It's a Wonderful Life. Anything like that. That's malarkey. I'm sorry to use that language, but I mean this film is the one to see for Christmas. I mean, even the fashion sense, like I was saying, the hair and fashion, everything of the film, like even Jack Frost's hat, oh, it's like a little. I mean,
It's too stylish.
they perverted that hat for Breaking Bad, so I don't think anybody should watch Breaking Bad because it's very.
I
I've only seen
I
commercials.
will never watch an episode of that.
I've
show.
only seen commercials, and I was already disgusted. I had to pray after I saw.
Every time a commercial
30
comes
seconds.
on, I just jump at my TV.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, why would I even want to see that filth on television? So they have that kind of hat in this film, but that hat represents good. It's not the traditional snowman top hat, but it's something that gives a little, a little fire, a little kick. You know what I mean?
It gives them a bluesy edge.
It's almost a little Latino. You know what I mean? Which is a little scary for me.
And no, you got to bring in the other races.
That's true. I know they have to learn from somewhere, right?
The light.
You have to learn from somewhere. I know what you mean. So what about Mark Addy's character, his friend? At first I would think he was going to be a lascivious character and go after, maybe I thought they would have Hollywoodized this film and had him rig the car.
What I didn't approve of was having a British person living in America like that. I mean, we need to take care of our own. We can't have other cultures milking on us. But he ends up to be a wholesome guy, and it made me open my mind a little. Maybe
right. Go ahead.
What? No, go ahead.
Okay, I was a little bit scared about his character because his character, in a historic sense, excuse my lack of good grammar tonight. It seems that he's this British fellow, right? A bloke, so to speak.
Right.
And I think, and call me crazy, but there's an idea that he is almost taking revenge for when America, first started its days, and when the Americans were here, and the Native Americans started invading us, and then the British started invading us, and then we kind of repelled both of those parties. Right. And I think he's almost set up that car with the faulty windshield wiper to kill Jack Frost. That's what I thought. You know what I mean? But then, it's a little blurred lines, so to speak. Not like that hit song.
I can understand the thought. It did occur to me for a second.
Okay.
But in a film like this, I don't think a film like this would get into that because it's a wholesome film. It really is.
That's true. So I was very scared that was the reason why that happened in the film. But we did find out that his character was true and just and saw the greatness of America. And he understood where his beams are based. Right, his loyalties. Yeah. So what did you think about the dynamic of, the son and Jack Frost in snow form?
Well, it's a little strange seeing a walking snowman.
that's a little strange is understatement. But go ahead.
But the love was there. You could feel the love, and his dad was melting, and he was just so upset, and he did everything he could do to take care of this. He became a man taking care of his dad. It's like they traded roles almost.
That's true, and I'm very, like I said before, I'm very happy with that. I'm very glad that they cut out all those scenes. There was another sequence where I believe that, I don't know why it was there, because I could find it on YouTube when you search Jack Frost. Because before I wanted to watch the film, I wanted to watch to see if it was watchable for me as a human being, and as a religious man that cares about life, love, and the pursuit of liberty. Right. I was going to say pursuit of happiness, but liberty trumps that. And there was a sequence where Jack Frost was on a sled and it decapitates a child. So I was really worried about watching this film.
That must have just been like maybe $1 or something.
No, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was. But I
must have just been a goof in the crew or something, and someone taped it thinking that would be funny.
I don't find that salty humor very funny at all, and I don't know why they would resort to that kind of gore and violence. But I'm glad they cut it out of the film because they understood where their bread was buttered. Was to have a wholesome film for people to watch, families to watch and enjoy. Americans, very good red-blooded Americans, red, white, and blue, flag-wearing, guys that want to see wholesome humor, like blue-collar comedy tour, stuff like that. I love that stuff, like Larry the Cable Guy.
He's my favorite.
He's amazing, isn't he?
Get her done, right?
Get it done is correct. Get our done, excuse me. So I mean, what are your final thoughts on this film? Like, what do you think people can learn from this film, and how more can you deconstruct this film?
I think that it's a great film, and I think you can learn the value of family, of being independent, growing as a person.
Quite true.
And if I had to rate this film, I'd rate this film a 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. propeller arms throwing snowballs at the bully
That's true.
and putting him in his place.
An astute observation about the film, and I agree. I think when this film was first suggested to us, I was like, is this really a horror film? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, the poster originally looked, and the sequence, the scenes that I had saw online on YouTube, the clips were very horrifying, but the film was completely different from that. And I guess it was the horror of losing someone, but then the joy of getting them back in your life. You know what I mean? That was that kind of thing. So I too will give it a for a Christmas horror film about losing somebody. I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Evading those rascal hooligans that try to destroy your life, but you end up becoming friends with them and finding through the power of God Almighty that everything's going to be okay. So, Denny, gotta ask you, like I always do, because we feel a little bit reserved, and this is a very Christmas-centric episode. What's the final word?
Jesus.
The horror deconstruction.